Dawnbringer, Book 2, Chapter 5, A Messenger Comes. The clash of metal against metal rings through the training ground as Rawlane parries the strike of the captain of the guard. He then lunges forward and seeks to land a blow on his trainer, but the latter deftly steps to the side and blocks the axe with his shield, and then, in one swift flourish, counters with his sword full against Rawlane's back. The blow is light and with the blunt of the blade, but Rawlane admits defeat. Were the battle in earnest, the strike would have been deadly, or at least debilitating.
"You're getting better,"
the captain says.
"Lighter on your feet now, though your attacks are still too slow and predictable."
"I am a huntsman, not a warrior, Hare's Ear,"
he replies.
"But you are one of the few men in Ristfand who have had real combat experience,"
Hare's Ear says.
"at least in war itself. My men have spent their lives as guards and custodians of justice, not on the field of battle, where death is all around, and your enemy approaches you only to take your life."
"Sometimes he approaches you more to save his own,"
comments Rawlane.
"I know that a part of me does anyway."
"Aye, and that is a difficult thing to master,"
says the captain.
"To flinch when a sharp blade of metal is flying toward you is only natural and easy. But to stand strong, unmoved, and to keep your wits about you, enough to block, parry, and counter the strike, that takes practice, experience, and discipline. You are doing quite well in all of them."
"But I still flinch a bit."
"Only slightly. The greater point of growth for you is to outmaneuver your opponent. In order to do this, brute force is not enough, nor even speed alone. Your movements must be so fluid as if your body has turned to sinews of water that ever flow and never cease, that they cannot interpret your intentions nor even your stance."
"How exactly do I turn my body to sinews of water that ever flow and never cease?"
asks Rawlane.
"I'm not going to dance around my opponent like a madman or a jester."
"I do not mean that your body remains continually in movement."
Hare's Ear replies.
"No, in combat, stamina is of great importance. If you move too much, you shall tire and be overwhelmed. That is the other half of the picture. You are to be like water, ever flowing, but also like a rock firm and unmoving."
"Like a hunting animal preparing to spring?"
Rawlane offers.
"Precisely. This combination of slow and fast, of immovable that then springs into action, is the key to your success."
The captain explains.
"You see this even in the peskiest of insects, do you not? Whether a simple fly or a gnat, they land and remain unmoving, as if taunting us, and when we try to strike them, they are off, beyond our reach, and before we know it, they have stung us and disappeared again."
"An unpleasant experience."
Rawlane grants.
"Indeed, but likewise you must be. You cannot fly, and you are of greater size, yet such an approach shall work well for you, and it fits with the build of your body and the manner of your combat. It only needs to grow and be less of a tendency and more of a honed choice."
"As you say, I shall work on it."
With this they retire, and Rawlane fits his axe again in his belt, wiping sweat from his forehead. The afternoon sun is warm, and the air is still and quiet, with hardly a whisper of breeze. The weeks pass in Ristfand with no news of the incoming forces and with little to speak of within the city itself. The days, however, are occupied by many in combat training, since not only is the city guard preparing to fight, but a militia has been formed of almost all the men over the age of 18 within Ristfand and its surrounds. Rorlain himself trains much, but he has also taken to spending a great deal of his time assisting in the making of weapons and armor. He does not have the skills of a smith, but neither does the city have the resources for the mass production of metal armament, and he helps rather in shaping hewn wood into spears, often affixing a tip of sharpened iron or copper to the end. He also boils, dries and sews leather for armors, mainly jerkins or vests to protect the vital organs of the torso from neck to hip. He has ridden out with a hunting party multiple times to the surrounding woods to catch what they may for the production of leather and furs, and also for the stocking of provisions against the coming siege and the likely scarcity of supplies born of this. But most of his time is spent in the city, working and training from early morning to late afternoon. Because of this, he has seen little of those at the temple. Eldarion remains on his mind and in his heart, but he does not know what more to say to him. He knows not how to share with him the growing sense of fear and suspicion he feels regarding the leadership of the city, the hearers in particular. But what if Eldarion is right, at least in part? What if Rorlain's suspicions are unfounded or at least misguided? Even if the hearers is not to be trusted, this does not imply that any of Rorlain's thoughts or interpretations are correct. And thus, to act upon them could bring great harm to many persons. Is not Eldarion correct, therefore, that the best thing to do, perhaps the only thing to do, is to devote themselves to preparing for the coming battle? The true nature of the heiress and his intentions shall be made known, with the coming of war, to his own walls. Then the man shall be known for his deeds. Thinking of the approach of enemy troops to the walls of Ristfand, Rorlain is reminded of a conversation he had with the captain of the guard a couple days earlier, a conversation concerning the battlements of the city and the guard to be stationed upon them.
Hare's ear.
Rorlain cries, stopping the captain as he walks away.
What is it, Rorlain?
You said that you wished to show me the battlements of the city and to discuss the plan of defense. Is now an appropriate time for such a thing?
Herzia replies,
I was heading to the northern wall of the city soon regardless. I can show you the main gate and discuss with you its design, as well as the proper placement of men-of-arms upon it.
But why do you wish to speak of that with me, Captain?
Asks Rorlain.
You will see soon enough.
On the north wall of the city, near the center point where west and east meet, lies the great gate of Ristfand. There are also 3 smaller gates, one each on the other sides of the city, west or east into the plains and south to the slope descending to the sea. And in all directions, too, settlements spread, homesteads and farms dotting the landscape, though to the south the heavy stone structures of the city spread even outside the walls to the ocean, built right up against the crashing waves. Here the trade of fishing flourishes, and the docks are full of fishing boats, large and small. Being of such considerable size, a good 2 miles across in every direction, Ristfand may well prove difficult to siege, as even a large army would be forced to attack only one or other part of the wall, while leaving the rest unattended. And since in her rear Ristfand looks out upon the sea, in the worst scenario the many boats could be used to evacuate the majority of the citizens from the city, to protect them upon the water, and to carry them to a safer location. The North Gate, being the largest of the 4 gates, is the most likely location of the main assault. It stands 20 feet across and 25 high, closed by a wooden drawbridge, reinforced with metal and an iron portcullis that can be lowered and raised from a chain pulley upon the battlements. These battlements, on the 30-foot wall, provide a walkway wide enough for 3 men to walk abreast, and they can do so protected by a parapet chest-high on the side facing away from the city, with merlons 2 head heights taller. Sentries continually man all the gates and indeed are stationed at regular intervals along the wall, the entire perimeter of the city. But nowhere is a better location for an army to seek entry than the north, and here they plan to focus their defense, though ready to move at the slightest notice, for they will know not until the enemy comes, from whence precisely they shall attack. Rolain and Herzir arrive at the gate and stand just inside it, in a wide courtyard of stone, a kind of antechamber to the city itself, and the last attempt to prevent, or at least to slow, an army in the event that they breach the outer gate. Stone steps lead up onto the battlements on either side of the gate, and Herzir gestures for them to ascend. When they have come to the top of the wall, they look out over the wooded plains to the north, rich in the vibrant colour of spring. These woods are interspersed with farms and plain wood and thatch buildings, with rough gravel or dirt paths, connecting many of them both to each other and to the main Mardas road that runs more or less straight down from the north to the gate itself.
I would like you to have command of a troop of archers who shall be stationed on this wall,
Herzir says.
Why me?
Rolain asks, turning to look at the captain.
Never before have I had the charge of men.
That is true, but you are one of the few who have tasted real battle, and against the forces of the Empire at that.
I fear what I experienced shall be nothing like what awaits us when the army arrives at our very gates.
Rolain retorts.
I do not trust myself to keep a level head when that happens.
But I do,
says Herzir.
And the men shall need a firm hand, that their arrows may not be wasted, and the gods forbid that they may fight well with the blade in the event our wall is breached.
If you insist, then I shall try.
It is but 50 men. For that many, I believe, you are equipped.
Rolain turns his gaze out over the lands to the north and sighs deeply. A pang of fear spreads through his heart, and for a moment he glimpses more of Eldarian's pain than he has known until this moment, the pain of being responsible for the deaths of others. He hopes to be spared of this himself, but in this moment he recognizes the real possibility, even the probability of such a thing happening.
I will do what I can,
he says to Herzir, keeping his gaze to the north and watching the many trees sway gently in the wind. And as if sensing Rolain's thoughts, the captain replies,
Just remember that you are not in charge of their lives. Whatever happens, it may be well beyond your control. Just give commands and, insofar as within your power, instill courage. The rest lies within the heart of each man and in the hands of fate.
Suddenly a figure appears in the distance, on the horizon at the very limit of sight, a figure on horseback riding hard at full gallop along the road. Rolain and Herzir descend the stairs and step out through the gate to greet the rider when he approaches.
Hail, friend,
Herzir cries, raising his hand in the air as the rider draws near. He wears the garb of a soldier of Risfand, and his horse glistens with sweat in the light of the sun.
Hail, Captain,
the man says, reining in his horse and coming to a halt before them. He dismounts and stands, visibly exhausted, and yet his eyes burning with an interior fire.
I bring word of my scouting expedition.
Your name is Austin Lardus, correct? What news do you bring?
Herzir asks.
Yes, and I bring grave news indeed,
says the rider.
Not 5 days past, I encountered a troop of soldiers marching southeast along the plains, as if they had come through Teldin Pass with their sights set upon Ristfand.
That is likely their exact path.
Rolain says.
How many men did you estimate?
It is a large host, though numbers I cannot accurately guess,
replies Austin, and then hesitantly.
I suppose 5,000.
That is more than twice the number of trained fighters that we possess, though we have gladly been able to prepare for battle many more,"
says Hareseer.
"But an untrained man with a sword in his hand is not necessarily worth counting when set against an army of trained soldiers."
"There may yet be great worth and courage in the men of our city, Captain, though untested,"
Austin says, with a bow of his head.
"You speak truly,"
replies the captain.
"though we can only pray that the test does not break them."
Was the company that you saw composed of men alone?
Rawlane asks.
"Men alone?"
Austin asks in response.
"I saw none but men armed for war, and if they march behind me, they could be only 2 or 3 days away now. I rode hard and fast, but there is only so much I could have gained on them in so short a space."
"Then we shall prepare with haste for their arrival."
Hareseer says.
"Thank you for bringing word with such care. Many lives may indeed depend upon your speed."
"What more would you have me do?"
asks Austin.
"Go directly to the hearers and bring him the same word that you shared with us, and then you may rest and recuperate from your travels."
With this, Austin bids them farewell and leads his horse into the city. Rawlane and Hareseer remain standing for a moment, looking to the north, as if an army would crest the horizon at any moment. At last, Hareseer breaks them out of their reverie, saying,
"Let us bring word to the men before night falls. The coming days shall be full of expectation and preparation."
If blood boils in the veins with intense anger, it freezes with fearful expectation. But perhaps it is not blood at all, at least not bodily blood, that causes the feeling that one is almost paralyzed with uncertainty. It is rather what blood represents, the feelings of the heart throbbing out to pervade one's whole being, and to take in, too, what in the very extremities of experience seeks to reverberate also in the inner self. Rawlane feels the waves of fear viscerally as he walks back to the temple of Neraniel that evening after bringing word to the men. It was an exhausting work in itself, repeating the same message again and again, and seeing the fear in the eyes of those receiving it. In the eyes of many, yes, there was resolve, even profound courage. But the fear is there. After all, Ristfand is not a city designed to withstand prolonged assault. It is protected by watchtowers that will warn of any incoming force, and walls surround the city itself, tall and sturdy walls of stone. All of this Rawlane has seen for himself. But Ristfand has little more than these things. No heavy weaponry, no wide moat, no clear view of the surrounding area, which is heavily wooded and provides ample cover for any attacking force, and no strategic position. Not even a crevice in the mountainside to limit the enemy's attack to only one section of the wall. The coming battle is different than the assaults on imperial caravans or patrols in which Rawlane had previously participated. Here it is not a matter of a surprise attack on an unsuspecting troop of 12 or 24 men, from which one can retreat again into the secrecy of the woods. No, now it is a matter of building up defenses and standing strong, while a superior force seeks to waylay, to conquer, to take or destroy what one seeks to protect, and even one's very life. Yet regardless of what stands before him and the fear that it incites, Rawlane has known fear, has tasted darkness and the proximity of death. He thinks of the cave of the Ahotan, and yet has come back again into the fullness of life. Deep inside his heart he feels, or perhaps simply hopes, though this may be even stronger and more trustworthy, that he shall see light again after the coming darkness. But how many lives shall be lost in the process, and how much anguish inflicted? As he comes to the courtyard and begins to ascend the steps of the temple, Rawlane resolves to fight not to safeguard his own life, but rather, when faced with the terror that awaits, to seek to assuage the fear of others and to save their lives in whatever way he may. As he comes to the main corridor, he sees Tiliana walking, with her back to him, toward the great doors leading into the sanctuary. He opens his mouth to call out to her, but she pulls one of the doors open and passes through it before he finds the appropriate words to say. After a moment's thought, he decides to enter behind her, and when he does so, he finds her sitting about halfway along the length of the nave of the sanctuary, and her head is bowed. He eases himself into a bench a few seats behind her. It is a good half hour or so, and he is nodding off to sleep where he sits, through the intermingling of fear and exhaustion, before she stirs.
Tiliana,
He says softly as she rises to her feet and begins to leave the sanctuary.
Rawlane?
She asks, looking at him in surprise.
What is it?
I just wanted to inform you that one of the scouts that was sent out has returned.
He replies.
And they report a force marching toward the city, naught but a few days out.
After an expression of pain washes across her face, she says,
Then it begins soon?
She turns away, as if needing space for thought or as if preparing to leave the sanctuary, but then she turns back and adds,
I heard you come in just after me. Did you wait for all this time just to inform me?
Well,
Rawlane says sheepishly.
I actually lost track of time. Exhaustion seems to have overtaken me.
There is no better place to rest than where one's limitations are held by someone greater.
Tiliana says simply.
Maybe it is fitting that you felt that here and not elsewhere.
Rawlane looks at her for a long moment, in wonder and amazement that her words cut so deep into his heart. For he has indeed been restless and overworked for weeks now, filled with fear, expectation, and suspicion, and has been carrying all the burdens of his thoughts and desires alone, and feeling crushed by the weight.
I wish that is indeed what I experienced,
says Rawlane.
but I fear it was just exhaustion, plain and simple.
Many things we feel without knowing it,
Tiliana answers with a gentle smile.
and much happens within us without our being aware of it.
Perhaps so.
With this, Rawlane rises to his feet and continues.
May I walk you back to your room? Then I shall seek Syrian and bring him the news. All in the temple shall know soon enough.